everybody, Devpro for Life here, bringing you guys a brand new archetype analysis. I need to get back to doing this series because I am way too behind on all the new archetypes that have been coming out lately. Anyway, so as you guys know, I like to wait to talk about the new TCG exclusive archetypes till they're done. Well, quote unquote done, because I guarantee you when they bring the Vendreads and the FA over to OCG, they're going to get some broken OCG exclusive card, maybe two, like with Subterrors if Konami really wants to try hard to fix the deck. But, however, yeah, they're pretty much done, and it's not going to be probably for half a year to a year before we hear anything about the OCG stuff. So, yeah, it's done. And it's a shame, too, because Vendreads and FA are by far the weakest of the TCG exclusive archetypes to have been announced and released, which is a crying shame because they both have really cool ideas and stuff that they can do. And today we're going to be talking about Vendread. I almost said FA. Vendread. On the onset, when the stuff first started coming out and was announced, the deck had more promise than FA. But, however, as it came out, as a lot of you guys know, things just went kind of downhill. So, what is Vendread and what is their general concept? Vendreads are a zombie ritual deck that focus on having rather lackluster ritual monsters. Like, they all have just kind of okay effects, well, with the exception of one of them, really. But, however, the little dudes, the monsters in the main deck that are not rituals, they grant the ritual monsters bonus effects that, in accumulation with the ritual monsters' inherent effects, become really powerful. The issue with this is that the rituals have to tribute on field in order to get the effects. Now then, on that note, though, every single non-ritual Vendread has an effect to where they can special summon themselves, with the exception of one monster, and they all have the effect to where, if they're tributed while in the field, they grant the ritual monster a bonus effect, which is really great, and is generally what you want to try and do. There's a lot of issues with this, though. On that side note, though, the deck seems to be really kind of, and this is just very honestly fun little trivia, it takes heavy inspiration from Resident Evil, Spawn, The Thing, and a bunch of other stuff. So the deck has a lot going for it, but it also has a lot going against it. And yeah, let's just go over the archetype. First and foremost, we got Vendread Anima, the lowest level and the weakest attack and defense monster in the archetype, as well as also one of the two level 1s in the deck. I'm going to be completely honest, level 1 is by far the worst level for a ritual tribute fodder monster, unless it's got some sort of modulation effect or can count as full tribute, which neither of the level 1s do. Now then, Anima, though, is by far one of the cooler monsters in the archetype. So, Anima is the exception to the rule about how every single Vendread that's not a ritual has a special summoning effect to summon itself. Anima instead has effect to summon out a Vendread other than itself. By banishing it from your graveyard, you can summon out one Vendread that's banished, except, well, another copy of itself, or itself in general. Now then, however, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except zombies. And then, if you ritual summon a Vendread ritual monster using Anima on the field, it gets the following effect, where you can banish, well, where any monster destroyed by battle with the ritual monster is banished instead. I'm going to be completely honest, you do not really use the on-field effect too much unless you're in a desperation thing, or if you're doing against a deck that you know that your opponent actively wants monsters to be destroyed by battle, or in general just destroyed and go to the graveyard. For instance, Rockets, TG, stuff like that, but those decks have ways of destroying themselves anyways, so it's not the most reliable thing. That being said, though, Anima is most useful for being in the graveyard. While she's in the graveyard, you can just banish her, summon out any of your banished Vendread monsters. That's any of them. It can be a ritual that got banished, like if it got bottomless or something. It can be any of the other little dudes, and every other Vendread monster banishes themselves after they use their summoning effect, which is really cool because Anima allows you to recycle them, and so on and so forth. Now then, of course, also there's ways of getting Anima back in the graveyard or back in the deck so you can use her effect later on again. Overall, Anima is a really great card, and I think it's a solid 2 to 3 of depending on your build and preference. The special summoning restriction is a bit annoying, but because it's For the rest of the turn, you can do your non-zombie special summoning, like for instance making a Cypher and Lord Omega or something, prior to summoning her, which is just really good overall in general. Now then, moving on, we got Vendread Core. Vendread Core is another intriguing one. He's a level 1 dark zombie, 0 attack, 500 defense, and basically if he's in your graveyard, you can banish another zombie monster that's in your graveyard and special summon Core. And then if he's used as tribute for a ritual summon of a Vendread ritual monster while on the field, that monster gets the ability to where it cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. That is really good overall, especially since targeting, while it has like extremely gone down, like, you know, targeting effects are just kind of bad now. But however, there's still a lot of cards that do target. Heck, if Trident was still in the game, this card would be amazing for Vendreads, as then your ritual wouldn't be targeted, wouldn't be able to be targeted by Trident. Likewise, there's plenty of other cards out there that still target in the game, like Masterpiece, and then I think there's something that oh yeah, the trap card that Pendulum Magicians play. I think that's oh crap, which one is that? Chronograph? I can't remember. I digress. Core is a really good card overall. He's pretty solid. And I think he's a pretty good 1-2 of, maybe a 3 of. I think that's only really necessary though in certain formats, like if Zodiac ever become a thing again or something. But in general, I think he's a solid 1-2 of. The big thing that hinders him is his level. Now that being said, he works really well in tandem with the level 8 Ritual, who we will get to here in a few minutes. Next up, we got Vendread Striges. Quite honestly, the weirdest name of the bunch. So, Striges, if he's sent to the graveyard, you can reveal a Vendread card in your hand, spell summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. By the way, Core does the same thing. He gets banished whenever he leaves the field. They all get banished when they leave the field after using their effects. I digress. Anyways. So you get to just reveal a Vendread, special summon him from your graveyard if he's sent there, and then if he's used for the ritual summon of a Vendread ritual monster, after damage calculation, if that monster battled, you can draw 1 card and discard 1 card. The summoning effect is actually pretty good overall. I'd say it's kind of decent because you do have to have a Vendread card, and that's not always going to happen. But generally speaking, if you're sending him to your graveyard, you're doing it because you want to, you know, trigger his effect. Likewise, his actual like effect that he adds on to the ritual monsters is pretty good overall too. Like anytime if it battles, you get to draw 1 card and then discard 1 card, and that's not a once per turn stuff. Unless I am misreading this, which I do not believe it is. And since Vendreads have a few different ways to cause multiple battles, you can potentially get multiple draws and multiple dumps. The only downside is that due to Vendreads having so many discard cards and just having to burn through their hand and field in general, oftentimes you'll be drawing and discarding whatever you drew because you just don't have much else in your hand. I think Striges is a solid 1-2 of, maybe even more if the deck gets more support in the future. That really makes it worth trying to actually go for the ritual build, which I do prefer overall. So now then, moving up, we got Hound Horde, one of the first of the Vendreads to be announced. Hound Horde got people excited because this thing is by far one of the best main deck Vendread monsters. Well, main deck non-ritual, I should say. So, Hound Horde, if he's in your graveyard, you can pitch a Vendread card, spell summon him from your graveyard, and then, well, banish him if he leaves the field. And then his effect that he grants onto the ritual monsters is that during your player's turn, you can target a spell or trap card your opponent controls, banish it. This, in tandem with the next one, makes it to where your ritual monsters can become a double Trident. It's really, really good overall. The discarding, again, that's yet another card in the deck well, discard. So that's 2 so far. You're going to see just how many cards in the deck that, well, discard here shortly. Now then, that's a bit of a downside, but however, as you'll see, and you probably already know, they like being in the graveyard as well as, well, zombies in general. My biggest issue with the discard is that it really should be just discard any zombie, because discarding a Mizuki for this thing would be really, really awesome. But however, I can't deny that this thing is easily one of the best of the Vendreads. He loads up your graveyard. He makes a really good combo piece with Striges. If you pitch Striges, summon out Hound Horde, and then use Striges effect to reveal a Vendread, and special summon it, you can just go off from there, make a vampire sucker or whatever, and then just go off from there. It's a really, really good card. It's a good combo piece, and I can't just express how much this card really does help out the deck. This banishing a spell or trap card too is really great, especially since a lot of the spells and traps nowadays have destruction effects, you know, like banishing your opponent's True Draco trap cards, you know, like Armageddon, or I think that's what it's called, Apocalypse, something like that. Apocalypse and Return and stuff. Just being able to do that and just get rid of them, not have to worry about it. And since it's a quick effect, you can do it during your player's turn. It's just a really great card overall. I absolutely love the artwork too. For some reason, there's a little zombie, I forget what kind of dog that is. It's just adorable. It's creepy adorable, but I like it. Moving on, we got Vendread Revenants. Level 4, 1800 attack, 200 defense. I know I keep forgetting to mention their stat lines, but honestly, they're kind of irrelevant. Strategist is a 500, 2000. Houndhordes is 0, 2100. But Revenants is honestly the only one of them non-ritual Vendreads where their attack and defense does actually matter. Having 1800 attack makes it a pretty solid first turn normal summon if you don't have any other plays, which actually does happen quite a bit, which is kind of annoying. And then in combination with his summoning effect, it does help out quite a bit. Or sorry, their summoning effect, because this is referring to the zombie horde collectively. So what does it do? If it's destroyed on your possession by your opponent's card, battle, or card effect, you can spell summon it from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. Now, this actually is not once per turn, so if you have a way to prevent your stuff from getting banished, you can just constantly reborn them every single time that they get destroyed, which is insane, and there's actually an FTK to do that. If I can find a video showing off the FTK, I'll link it down below in either the descriptions or the comments. It involves, what was it, the Bone Tower of Souls or something like that, where every time a zombie is special summoned, you mill 2 cards from your opponent's top deck. Really stupid FTK there. Kind of hard to set up, though, because it requires having 2 of those, Revenants, and Imperial Iron Wall. But I digress. Now then, their thing that they grant onto your ritual monsters is really cool, and is quite honestly tied with Hound Horde for being the best thing, where once per turn during your first turn, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls, banish it. The only downside to this is that it has to be a special summon monster, which is very obnoxious. Because if your opponent like normal summons out a monster that can get over one of your ritual monsters, and it's not, you know, special summon, or they can't special summon it, like, if basically this thing is really good against everything but True Draco and Monarchs, which is kind of annoying. But I digress. So now then, as for how many you play, it's a 2 to 3 of. It really does come down to your personal preference. It can be a bit cloggy, that I found sometimes, because again, like, the deck just sometimes it is so heavily reliant on its normal summon, and it's great, and its special summoning graveyard effect is just not as good as the other monsters. Heck, even Strategist is better than this thing in terms of its special summoning effect. I do like that it can special summon itself whenever it's destroyed, but I feel like that it should have had some other way of getting it on the field from the graveyard, or at least give Vendread something else that can get him on the field from the graveyard. But anyway, so moving on, we got Vendread Chimera, a level 5 ritual monster, 2300 attack, 0 defense. You can ritual summon this card with any Vendread ritual monster. When a card or effect is activated that would destroy a card on the field, as a quick effect, you can banish one zombie monster from your graveyard, negate that activation, and if you do, destroy that card. If this card is tributed or banished for a ritual summon, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. You can only use each effect of Chimera once per turn. Chimera is an intriguing monster. He was the second ritual to be released, but is markedly worse compared to the first ritual, who we will get to here on the next slide. Chimera offers a pretty good protection effect, but can also act as pretty good disruption too, because it's any card on the field that it would destroy. So if your opponent activates a diagram and they try to destroy something that's on the field, granted they have to have nothing in hand because you don't destroy as cost, so there's no way to know if you're going to destroy something on the field. You can negate it. Likewise, freaking Masterpiece, Trident, stuff like that you can negate. But even more so, you can negate your opponent's stuff trying to destroy your stuff. So like Regeki, Dark Hole, Mirror Force, Twin Twister, stuff like that. Pretty good card overall. My biggest issue with this card is that it's a hard once per turn. There's no incentive to have more than one of them out on the field, And that's just really not all that great. If it was a normal just once per turn, where if you had multiple Chimera, you could just, really try to protect your stuff heavily, I would feel more inclined to play more than just one or two of them. But however, he's not. And even more so than that, he has an absolutely abysmal attributing effect. Why is it that this thing reduces my opponent's stuff by 500 attack and defense? It just makes no sense. Okay, now as you'll see later on, Konami really tried to run home with the idea of Vendreads being a battle-oriented deck. And I have no issue with that. But there is no reason for all this attack and defense manipulation, especially when it's not good manipulation, which is really, really obnoxious. I do like that this thing does have a benefit for being attributed for a ritual summon, as he is one of the lower level Vendread monsters. But he should have done something else, like maybe, I don't know, search out a Vendread card when he's used for a ritual summon, or banish for a ritual summon, or something like that. Anything else. The 500 attack and defense is literally never going to be relevant. Okay, I can't say never, because there will be times where it will be relevant, but it doesn't come up enough to where it actually could be considered always relevant. So he's definitely a solid 1 to 2 of, if you want to play him at all. I've seen some people not play him at all, and I can totally understand that. He's just really honestly nice for having if you can combo extend him with multiple other ritual monsters, as he does offer great protection. It's just his tributing effect is just absolutely abysmal. Moving on, we got Vendread Slayer, the original ritual monster, and one of the cards that got everybody hyped up for this deck. This thing is a beast, but however, his on-field effect is just kind of okay. It's mostly his other stuff that really makes people excited about this card. So, attack 2400, defense 0, level 6. Really good stats all around, makes for a great boss monster. You can ritual summon this card with any Vendread ritual spell. Once per turn, if this card battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation as a quick effect, you can banish one zombie monster from your graveyard. This card gains 300 attack. If this ritual summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one ritual spell from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send one Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Vendread Slayer once per turn. So, Vendread Slayer has really, really great effects overall, I would say. But again, why is there the attack increase? I feel like this attack increase would have been much, much better if it was, like, increased by 500 or something. If you want this deck to be a battle-oriented deck, you gotta have bigger attack increases. And heck, even 500 is maybe not enough. Maybe 600 just so he instantly gets to the 3000. If you have a way to instantly get him to 3000, that's a lot better. Now, of course, I know there were people saying, oh, you can tribute, Chimera for Slayer, so then your opponent loses the 500 for them, and then you can boost up Slayer by 300. I don't like that at all. You'd much rather ritual summon Slayer by using any of the little guys than you would by using Chimera. Moreover than that, while the attack buff is a permanent attack buff, it's just not enough, and it takes too long to get there. And if your opponent knows that you're trying to get the attack buff going, they're just gonna, pop Slayer with something else. Now, granted, there's ways to stop that, but I digress. Now, the big thing is that if he is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand, and then you get to send a Vendread from your deck to the graveyard. Now, granted, this is a hard once per turn, but it's an absolutely amazing recursion effect. It literally basically pays for your ritual summon that you had to mitigate. So, ritual summoning is an inherent neg, 3. Okay, you use the ritual spell, you tribute at least 2 monsters, sometimes 1 if you got a high enough monster that you're tributing, and then you summon out the monster. So you just use 3 cards to summon 1 monster, and generally speaking, you're summoning the monster from your hand. Now, Vendreads are a bit interesting in how to do this because they try to mitigate that cost quite a bit, but however, Slayer at least gets you back 2 cards. Kind of. The big thing is that he puts a monster in your graveyard, and zombies love being in the graveyard. And it's any zombie. Sorry, no, it's any Vendread. So you can send Hound Horde, you can send Sturges, you can send Anima, you can send freaking Core. All of these have graveyard revival effects. That's amazing. And then you get to add a ritual spell. And the deck only has 2 ritual spells, but they're both absolutely phenomenal ritual spells, and Slayer is able to just get them to your hand anytime he's sent from the field of grave. This is amazing recursion for the deck. And it's triggered off of any time you send to the graveyard. If your opponent kaijus him, you get the effect. If you use him for a synchro summon, you get the effect. If you use him for a tribute summon after... Sorry, if you use him for a ritual summon after summoning him, you get the effect. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's really, really insane. That being said, his on-field effect is, again, pretty subpar. I do like that they tried to go with the, buffing him up because, he's supposed to be the superhero and stuff. But it's, again, the attack and defense manipulation. It's just not enough. And there's just not enough attack buff for that. So, yeah, it's just not that great. Granted, he is still a 3-of, and there's a darn good reason for it. And we'll get to that when we get to the first ritual spell. Then we got Vendread Battlelord. Oh, wow. People are super divisive on this card. So, Battlelord is a level 7, 27 attack, 0 defense. Ritual monster is a zombie, of course. And you can ritual summon this card with any Vendread ritual spell. You can banish one Vendread card from your graveyard and declare one type of card, monster, spell, or trap. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects of that type. If this ritual summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one ritual monster from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send one Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Vendread Battlelord once per turn. So, Battlelord is basically like Slayer. He gets, dumps to a Vendread monster to the graveyard, and you get to add another ritual monster. So, Slayer searches spells, Battlelord searches monsters. Pretty goes hand in hand there. I like that. So what's so divisive about this card? I mean, sounding like, you can banish any of your Vendread cards from your graveyard, call monster, spell, trap. You don't have to worry about that typing for the rest of the turn anymore, screwing you over. So, if your opponent has a hand trap, you can banish one of your Vendread traps or spells or something that you used earlier in the duel. Call monster, not have to worry about monster effects anymore, or trap, not have to worry about traps anymore. Not so much spells because you're not going to worry about spells as much during your turn. But that's just it. It's during your turn only. This card would have been, unarguably, the best of the Vendread ritual monsters if he was a quick effect. If you could use this effect during your opponent's turn to stop out any monster, spell, or trap, he would be the best of the bunch. And I would argue the deck would almost be worth, tournament play. It would be crazy. Because just summoning out a Battlelord, and it's not hard once per turn. If you have multiple Battlelords out on the field, you can use all 3 of their effects and then call monster, spell, trap and lock out your opponent entirely from using card effects. But there's no incentive to do that because it's not a quick effect. If it was a quick effect, you could use multiple on the field to, just banish 3 Vendread cards from your graveyard, call monster, spell, and trap with each one, well, monster, spell, or trap, depending on which one you want to use, and lock out. And just lock out your opponent from doing anything for the turn. They'd just literally basically be resigning to normal summoning a monster or setting a monster. And then you also got to keep in mind that you're using the little dudes to summon out the big guys, and that will give them bonus effects. So then you got this thing with being a double Dryadent or something. That would be really, really stupid. But however, that's not the case. And that's obviously the intention here, because that would be really stupid. And the whole point of the ritual monsters is that they are subpar, but become great with the little guys. A Battlelord summoned with a Hound Horde and a Revenants has an insane effect, being able to just banish a spell or trap and a monster once per turn, during your first turn, and locking out your opponents from doing stuff, and getting you to search stuff. Again, that can all be applied to Slayer as well as also every other ritual monster. It's just, this whole idea would have been working a lot better, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Honestly, Battlelord is a 1 to 2 of at most. He's not pre-preppable like Slayer is. But however, he is a good enough monster to where he does make a solid boss monster and locks out your opponent's stuff during your turn so that you can continue doing your plays. The big issue of doing that, though, is that because of his level, which is 7, he requires a large amount of tributes to get set up, and your opponent probably has already used their Ash Blossom on you, or has probably already used their Solemn Strike on you, because he's not a quick effect. Again, it's just, that's a big issue. He's a 1 to 2 of. I do really like this card overall, though, but however, he really could have been better. Moving on, we got Vendread Executor, and I forgot to mention this earlier with Anima. Sorry for the crappy picture quality. There's no good pictures of the new Vendread stuff online yet, so we got to make do with the crappy Facebook crops. So, Vendread Executor is the final ritual monster coming out in Flames of Destruction. He's a level 8, 3k attack, 0 defense, zombie ritual monster, and you can ritual summon this card with any Vendread ritual spell. This card's name becomes Vendread Slayer while on the field. While this ritual summon card is on the field, your opponent cannot target cards you control with card effects except this card. If this ritual summon card is destroyed by battle or is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, while it is in its owner's monster zone, you can add one Vendread card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Vendread Executor once per turn. So, he has a blanket targeting protection that makes it where your opponent has to target him with card effects, which makes him a really good combination with Vendread Core, because then your opponent can't target Executor either, which means your opponent can't target anything. So, like, the ideal setup to summon Executor is using a Vendread Revenants, a Vendread Hound Horde, and a Core, which all equals 8 total. So then you got a double Trident with total immunity to targeting. The issue with this, again, is that, again, targeting isn't as great as it used to be, so people aren't using as many targeting effects, and obviously that's the hardest field to set up, which I will get to here in a little bit, once I talk about my overall thoughts. So, this card is overall, I'd say he's a good ritual monster, you know, just being able to protect your stuff from targeting. He protects all of your cards, not just your Vendread stuff, which is pretty nutty. Now, my biggest issue, though, is that between him, Slayer, and Battlelord, he has by far the worst of the searching effect. He has to be killed by your opponent, and while he does get to search any Vendread card, he doesn't load up your graveyard either. That's not that great. The searching effect is nice, but why is it that it's not just, oh, once per turn I can banish a Vendread from my graveyard to search out a Vendread card? That would have been so much better. Or anything. This deck is severely lacking in searching power, and this card could have been so much better. Again, like, that's my biggest whole thing with this whole archetype in general, is that everything has potential. It's just under there. It's almost there. It's almost good, but it's not. Executor is a 1 to 2 of, like Battlelord. It really does come down to your personal preference and opinion. Personally, I've been testing 2, and I find that he can be a bit cloggy, because he is the hardest one to summon, being the highest level. And obviously it's the hardest one to get the most amount of effects bonused onto him. He's an overall good ritual monster, just really is just subpar, especially compared to Slayer and Battlelord. I really wish he could have been better. Now then, onto the spells. We got Vendread Origin. This card is the first ritual spell of the deck and was the only one they got until the last wave of support, which is rather annoying. This card can be used to ritual summon any Vendread ritual monster from your hand or graveyard. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field and or banish zombie monsters from your graveyard whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. If Vendread Slayer or Slayers you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So, Origin is an overall amazing ritual spell. Not only is it just able to summon any of your Vendread ritual monsters, which is just purely amazing, but also because it does mention Slayer later on in the text, you can pre-prep it. Now, for those who don't know, Pre-Preparation of Rites is a normal spell card that says add one ritual monster and, a ritual spell from your deck to your hand and a ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand who is specifically listed on that ritual spell, and then, yeah, that's it. So, it's really amazing that you get to do that, because that's a +1 just flat out. And being able to grab back a monster from your graveyard is also really great. And because this can protect Slayer, that makes Slayer arguably one of the best, alongside being able to just search out him in Origin right away with pre-prep. I mentioned earlier that, well, you might have noticed that I put a bit of emphasis on the on-field thing with Executor over here, because Executor is treated as Slayer while on the field. If Executor was treated as Slayer while in the graveyard, you could theoretically use pre-prep to search out Origin and grab Executor back from your graveyard to your hand, because pre-prep can do that. But he's only treated as Slayer while on the field, which means he only gets that benefit while never, actually, because Origin can only do one thing with Slayer while in the graveyard, and that's protect it, which is kind of annoying. Now then, That being said, I really wish that Origin could have some interaction with the other ritual monsters other than just being able to summon them, because if Origin could protect the others, it would be really great, but obviously they couldn't just list everybody, because for one thing, they probably didn't know all the ritual monsters they would, print for this deck yet, and even then, if they did, that would spoil all the future ritual monsters, which would be kind of funny, too, if you think about it. Now, then the other nice thing about this card is that it does allow you to ritual summon using monsters in the graveyard, but that's more of a last-ditch effort thing, unless you're playing the Synchro Spam build, which I personally don't like, but hey, that's just me. As the whole point of this deck is using your ritual monster, using your ritual fodder on the field to summon out your ritual monsters to get them to having bonus effects. If you're just summoning them from the graveyard, if you're just banishing the fodder from the graveyard, you're not getting those bonus effects, which is really, really, really annoying. Now then, even then, this card is still a 3 of, hands down. It's pre-preppable, it's got a good protection effect for Slayer and Executor, and it's just an overall amazing ritual spell. I almost forgot to mention, it can ritual summon the monster from the graveyard. So that makes your ritual monsters have even more versatility, because if you discard them for like Hound Horde or the future other stuff that discards, you can ritual summon your ritual monsters from the graveyard, which means you don't have to play as many of them as you would have to in other ritual-based decks, which is just amazing. Then we got Vendread Evolution. This card can be used to ritual summon any Vendread ritual monster from your hand or graveyard. Again, it can summon out the monster from the graveyard, which again makes it where you still don't have to play as many ritual monsters as you would have to in other ritual-focused decks. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field, and or send one Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard whose total level is equal to level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. The ritual monster is destroyed during the end phase of the next turn. You can only activate one Vendread Evolution per turn. Now then, you'll notice a lot of differences between this card and the first ritual spell. Evolution is another amazing ritual spell. You can ritual summon the monster from your hand or graveyard. Okay, that is really good. Obviously, just being able to summon a ritual monster from your graveyard. And then, while the materials have to equal that monster's level, you get to also send the material from your deck to the graveyard. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that's not the greatest thing ever, because they aren't on the field, so you aren't getting the bonus effects. But, whereas I have an issue with it with Vendread Origin, with Evolution, that loads up your graveyard, so you can send an Anima, you can send a Core, you can send a Hound Horde. That loads up your graveyard, gets them in your graveyard so you can use their effects, and then, just combo off and hopefully do another thing. While, yes, your ritual monster is destroyed during the end phase of the next turn, that's not a big deal. That will trigger, if you're summoning Battlelord or Slayer, that will trigger their effects to search, which is amazing. Now, obviously, you don't want to use this to summon Executor or Chimera, because they will not do anything on their destruction. Now, granted, I think Chimera should be able to protect itself from dying. Oh, wait, no, it has to be an opponent's card effect. Never mind. So, disregard everything I said about Chimera. It's still not good summoning Chimera or Executor, but, however, it's really good summoning Slayer or Battlelord, because then you get their effects to search. And it's funny enough, because they're the only two shown in the picture. So yeah, overall, this card is another really great ritual spell. It is a hard once per turn, unlike Vendread Origin, which is a bit annoying, but hey, I can digress that for the ability to ritual summon using materials from the deck. And it's not pre-preppable, which is another issue. So this card is a 2 to 3 of, depending on your personal preference. Personally, I prefer 3 of it because it is just such a great ritual spell, and the deck needs as much of it as like much consistency boosting as it can get, which Evolution allows, well, adds more. Partly because it's just simply another ritual spell, something the deck was sorely lacking for a long time, but also because it can dump stuff from your deck to the graveyard, which can then allow you to do more combos. This card is just an overall amazing ritual spell, but I can see why some people would want to play 2 instead of 3 because of the effect where it pops your ritual monster during the end phase, and because it's just honestly probably not as good as Vendread Origin, but Evolution is still a great, phenomenal ritual spell in general. Next, why is this not moving? There we go. Vendread Nightmare. Wow. What a waste of good art on a crappy card. Okay, so it's a continuous spell. Once per turn, you contribute one or more Vendread monsters from your hand and or field. Then target one face-up monster you control. Increase its level by the number of monsters tributed until the end of this turn. When you're attacking Vendread, Ritual Monster destroys an opponent's monster in battle. You can have your monster gain 1,000 attack. And you can only use this effect of Vendread Nightmare once per turn. Okay, so I have a lot of problems with this card. So, first and foremost, why is it that the attack buff... Well, actually, no, wait, no. Let's talk about the attack buff later. Why is it that in a ritual-based deck, where it's hard enough maintaining advantage, you have to tribute your freaking Vendread monsters to use them as to get the level modulation? Okay, that is stupid. Why does it not just reveal Vendread monsters you control, or in your in your hand, or on your field, or like target them or something, anything? Why does it tribute? Why doesn't it just reveal ritual like freaking Vendread cards in your hand to do the level modulation? Why is it that it can only increase and not decrease? Why is it that this deck has a level modulation thing in general? I can understand it with any other ritual-based deck, because you want to use as few monsters as possible, but with Vendreads, you want to use as many monsters as possible, so you can get as many bonus effects as possible, so you can get the beefiest, buffest, stupid, most powerful ritual monster you can, so that you can just freaking just sit on a big buff, like, Hulk of a freaking zombie, and just laugh as your opponent can't do anything about it. But no, you want to try and do less monsters, so you get less effects, okay? I don't get it. And then why is it that the attack buff is after the monster destroys a monster in battle? Why is it that it has to destroy a monster in battle in general? Why is it that it can't just be once per turn you can target one ritual monster, or sorry, Vendread in general? That'd be better. Target one Vendread you control, boost it by 1,000 until the end of the turn. Why is it that it's not like that? Why is it that it has to kill a monster in battle, has to already battle to get this, to get the attack buff? Why does it do an attack buff in general? What the hell is wrong with freaking Konami thinking this is a good card? Why did they waste paper for this card? This is by far the most useless waste of space of a card I have ever seen for an archetype, okay? And yes, I am mad because I freaking love Vendreads. Vendreads are such a cool idea. I like it. It's right down my alley with the playstyle and everything, you know, having big beefy monsters that just make your opponent want to hate their life and just everything. But they freaking ruined it with this freaking last wave of support, and Nightmare could have done anything else and it would have been a better card. This is easily the worst card, well, one of the worst cards I've ever seen in an archetype before. It's so anti its archetype. It's ridiculous. It does nothing for the deck. Okay. I am done. I am stopping myself. I could rant for another 10 minutes. We're already at 40 minutes. Holy crap, we're at 40 minutes. What the hell? How is it that this has been going on for 40 minutes already? Let's move on. Vendread Charge. It's a quick play. Send one zombie monster from your hand or face up on your field to the graveyard. Special summon one Vendread monster from your deck. You can only activate one Vendread Charge per turn. Vendread Charge is a pretty good quick play in general. Just being able to load up your graveyard by sending a Vendread, well, any zombie from your hand or field to the graveyard to summon out a Vendread from your deck. There really should have been more of this, okay? There's just not enough ways to get your Vendreads on the field to be able to, you know, actually use them for tribute fodder to get the bonus effects. My biggest issue is that this card doesn't do anything else. It really doesn't. Not to mention, due to how many discards the deck already does, it can really lead to a lot of clunkiness. Because while it's nice that you can send any zombie, which means you can send a Mizuki or something, you're not always going to be able to send what you want or what you would prefer. And it's just, it's like such an overly balanced card. If this card had a graveyard effect where like you could banish it to like banish a zombie and draw a card or two, that would be really good. Something to replace that discard cost, because it's a neg one. It really is. It's a neg one. You use it, you pitch something, special summon a Vendread, and you just neg yourself one for a Vendread monster. Now granted, best case scenario, you're sending a Mizuki or something so that you can use its graveyard effect to get more pluses to just go off from there. But that's not always going to be the case. So at best, it's breaking even. At worst, it's a neg one. it can be really discard clunky. Okay, it's a great spell, just summoning out a monster and stuff. Phenomenal artwork too. I love this artwork. I know I put run 3 on here, but honestly, it's a run 2 to 3. Okay, it really comes down to your build and how much you want to risk that discarding thing. Especially since he summons from deck, and freaking Ash Blossom is like one of the most played cards in the game, and they're probably going to negate this, so you just named yourself 2, and that hurts a lot. Moving on, Vendread Knights. It's a field spell. You can discard 1 card, add a Vendread monster from your deck to your hand. You don't use this effect of Vendread Knights once per turn. When your Vendread monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can banish 1 Vendread monster from your graveyard. It can attack an opponent's monster again in a row. This card is an overall just phenomenal field spell. My biggest issue with it is that it can't search out Vendread cards. This card should have been able to search out any Vendread card, but instead it can only grab monsters. If this card could search out the spells or traps, this card would be by far the best card in the deck, because then you could get the spells and traps. It'd make the traps actually worth playing most of the time, and it's just an overall great card. I know, like, most people complain when field spells don't, like, whenever field spells just have that obligatory attack buff, but in a deck that Konami was trying to make a battle-oriented deck out of, it should have done some sort of attack buff, like 300 attack or something. Any small amount of attack, because at least then, in combination with Slayer's effect, it would put Slayer at 3,000, which would be great. But they didn't do that. Instead, we got a double attacking effect, which is nice, especially when in combination with Sturges, because then you get to draw 2, discard 2. It's really nice in that case. But, however, again, that's just not that particularly great. Also, again, another discard card. That's, let's see here, freaking Town Horde, freaking Charge Knights. God, that's 3. Oh, yeah, Sturges, that's 4. And we ain't done yet. That's 4 cards that require you to discard cards. What is this, Infernity? That being said, though, Knights is definitely a 3 of, because it's just so versatile. Being able to search out any of your Vendread monsters, it makes it where you can grab your rituals, your little vanilla dudes. In general, it's just a great card. Nice, in general. Moving on. Now we're finally to the traps. Vendread Reorigin. Oh wow, this is a waste of a secret. Target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls that has a level. Tribute it, and if you do, spell summon a Vendread token, Zombie Dark, attack 0, defense 0, with a level equal to the tributed monster's original level. While the token spell summoned by this effect is on the field, you cannot normal or spell summon monsters except Vendread monsters. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, this card on paper is nice because you activate it, you tribute one of your opponent's monsters, you get a token, and then you can use that token for other stuff, for like rituals, for if the deck ever gets a link monster, that'd be cool. But however, my big issue with this is that it's just not really worth it. It is a nice little trap version of a kaiju, tributing off your opponent's monsters, making it to where you get your stuff. But the token doesn't do anything. It just kind of sits there. A lot of times you're tributing your opponent's like level 4 monsters and stuff, so that then they can't, combo off and go into links and stuff. And really, honestly, the token ends up being a chum blocker most of the time, just protecting you from getting hit in the face by your opponent's stuff. And it just isn't that great of a card. I mean, like, whenever it first came out, I thought it was like the best thing since sliced bread, because it's basically a kaiju during your opponent's turn, but it's got a lot of issues, especially since it does need to tribute a monster with a level. I really wish this card would be able to tribute any monster, and then if it was like a Link or Xyz, treat it like summon a token as having a level equal to that monster's rank, or Link arrows or something. That'd be cool, but they didn't do that. And then also, I wish the token would do something else, like maybe like give the monster protection from card effects or something, that you use the tokens for a ritual summon for. That'd be great, but there's nothing like that. The token just sits there and acts as extra fodder for your ritual summon. Yeah, this card's not really all that great. If you want to play it, I'd play 1 of it. I will say this, if the deck ever gets an easy way of searching out its spells and traps, Reorigin is probably like the 3rd best. Actually, wait, there's only, what, 3 traps? It's probably like the last one you want to go with. But however, depending on the format, it might actually be that decent enough to where it's a side card depending on what you're doing against, because if you're doing against a deck that doesn't really use Xyz or links too much, you can really screw over your opponent by tributing your boss monsters that have levels. So, moving on. Oh yeah, there are 4 traps. So, Vendread Reunion. Reveal 1 Vendread ritual monster in your hand. Special summon any number of your banished Vendread monsters with different names and face-down defense position, whose total levels exactly equal to level of the revealed ritual monster. Tribute all those face-down defense position monsters, then ritual summon that ritual monster from your hand. You must be able to ritual summon to activate and to resolve its effect. So, Reunion is a pretty interesting trap card. It's kind of like what the deck got as a replacement for a ritual spell for a bit, but obviously traps aren't as searchable as a ritual spell, and it's just not as good as a ritual spell that you can just activate outright. Now, it is nice that you can ritual summon during your opponent's turn thanks to this, and it does offer some nice recursion because it does summon those monsters, and then you get to just, get them back in your graveyard, which is really nice for being able to just reset up your graveyard and get a big beefy monster out. My biggest issue with this card is that it really should have been a quick play spell or something. Just because if you could activate it during your turn whenever you want, or in response to your opponent doing something, it'd be a lot better. You'd be able to actually really be able to make full use of this. And I just, traps aren't good anymore. I hate saying that, but it's kind of the truth at this point, unless it's a battle trap or just complete play stopper. It doesn't help that this deck doesn't have any way of searching out the Reunion except through Executor's effect. So Reunion really could have been better. It should have been a ritual spell or a quick play spell or something. But yeah, I do think that it is worth running. I personally played it too. I'm thinking about cutting it though, because it does just sometimes end up sitting there. So it's really down to your personal opinion. If you want to play 0 to 2 of it, I can understand if you maybe play 1 of it just as a happy medium. But however, unless the deck gets a way to search out spells and traps, this card's really, it's debatable if it's even worth running until they do get something to search out the spells and traps. Moving on, Vendread Revolution. Now, honestly, out of all the spells and traps, this is my second favorite, okay? Well, out of the traps, at least. Vendread Revolution. Discard 1 card and target a Vendread monster in your graveyard, and 1 ritual spell in your graveyard. Special summon that monster in defense position, and if you do, add that ritual spell to your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard and target 5 of your banished zombie monsters, shuffle them in the deck, and draw 1 card. You can only use each effect of Vendread Revolution once per turn. So this card is by far the second best trap in the deck. And it was the best trap until the new one came out. And it just is an overall amazing card. So it does make it the 5th of the cards in the Archetype. That's 5 cards total, because the next one and the final card do not freaking do any discarding. So that's 5 cards overall in this deck that do discards. It is nice that it's able to just get back a monster, it sets up your plays, gets your ritual spells, and then also has a graveyard effect that further helps paying it off by being able to shuffle back 5 of your banished zombies and then getting you another draw. It's a really good card overall, and I think it's worth playing 1 to 2 of it. I can understand if you don't want to play any of it because it is a trap, it is slow, and you do have to wait a turn. But however, overall it is a great card. It makes for great recursion. Then we got Vendread Daybreak. If your opponent controls more cards than you do, choose 1 ritual monster. Sorry, 1 Vendread ritual monster you control. Destroy all cards on the field except its chosen monster. It cannot attack directly while it remains face up on the field. You can only activate 1 Vendread Daybreak per turn. It's basically Excidon as a trap and turns your ritual monster into Excidonite because it destroys everything but him. This card is a really great trap card. It helps mitigate the minuses of the deck, and honestly the downside of not being able to attack directly is pretty negligible. I can't spell and I can't pronounce that word. You know what I mean though. It's not a bad downside. Mostly because you're probably gonna do something with that ritual monster, maybe make a vampire sucker or something, but overall this card is really good, and I think it's almost worth playing 3 of it. I don't know yet, because I really need to play test it, and from what I've had in my experience, it's again, the biggest issue is there's no way to search it. Like with all the other traps, if there was a way to search it, it'd definitely be a 3 of, and honestly, you kind of need to play 3 of it right now if you want to play it, because, well, you need to be able to see it as soon as possible if you want to be able to make use of it fully. It is a really nice card, though, for the deck to just be able to catch up and bring down your opponent to its pace and just be able to really screw over your opponent with what they're trying to do. Because especially with like these big first turn break my board game mindsets that people have nowadays, a lot of times your opponent probably doesn't have a hand or much of a hand, and they probably don't have a way to stop this. I like it a lot. It's a really great card, and I think it's worth playing 3 of. Although I can understand if you don't want to play it at all, or if you only want to play 1 or 2. Now that is the final card in the archetype, but however there is quite a number of outside support. First and foremost, due to this deck being a zombie archetype, Unizombie, Book of Life, Mizuki, Gozuki, and many more zombie support cards are playable in the deck. Likewise, it is a ritual-based deck, so ritual-focused support cards like Preparation of Rites, Pre-Preparation of Rites, as well as also, of course, Manju of the 10,000 Hands are all also playable in the deck. However many you want to play varies down to personal preference and also down to the sheer amount of just like trying to cram everything in and keep it 40 cards or less. Cypher and Lord Omega is by far the deck's best synchro monster if you want to go with the synchro route. And honestly, if you're playing Unizombie, who is one of the best zombie support cards, you're going to want to play Omega because Unizombie targeting himself for both of his effects, making him level 5 and loading up your graveyard, alongside with good old Vendread Hound Horde, make for an easy Cypher and Lord Omega, who can then load up your graveyard for even more plays while disrupting your opponent's hand. As much as I don't like the Cypher and Lord Omega turbo build, it's easy to see why people have gravitated towards that. This deck also has a good bit of a synchronization, if you will, of Shiranui, in that the decks really do kind of just work well together overall. Personally, I don't like the build too much, again, like the Omega spam build, but if you like Shiranui and you like Vendreads, try mashing them together. They work pretty well together. And then the deck has a lot of other versatile options they can really make use of. Necrophase, you know, Pot of Desires, Lure of Darkness, and other stuff like that. Now then, unlike most other archetype analyses where I just kind of leave it off at that and let you guys go off, I want to just kind of share what I feel like that Konami should have done to really try to further boost this deck. And hopefully, I mean, I know I'm a super small Yu-Gi-Oh channel and they're probably not watching this, and hell, considering this is an hour long, you're probably not watching this either. Although, thank you if you have gotten this far. I had no idea this would hit an hour long. It's been a while since I've done an hour long video. So what should have been done? I feel like this deck could have made a really big use out of a Super Rejuvenation-esque card. If you don't know what Super Rejuvenation is, it's a quick play spell. I think it's currently banned. I can't remember if it's banned or not. And basically, during the end phase, you get to draw cards equal to the number of dragons you discarded that turn. If this deck got like a Vendread Rejuvenation that says during the end phase, draw cards equal to the number of Vendread cards you discarded during a turn, it would really help out. It'd help mitigate that huge cost of just how many freaking cards in this deck discard. You got 5 cards that do discard, and it's pretty insane. That would help out a lot. They really need a spell and trap card searcher. Without it, the traps are almost not worth playing, even though 2 and 3 of them, like 3 of them are pretty good. You know, that's 3 out of 5 pretty good traps. And then they need more ways of getting monsters on the field, like more spells or traps that help you summon Vendreads from your hand, deck, or graveyard, or anything to be able to get them out on the field pretty easily. And then most importantly, I feel like there should have been a card that makes it to where, regardless of where you tribute your Vendread monsters, it grants the add-on effects on your Vendread ritual monster. Like, heck, Nightmare, an easy example. That card, erase the full text and say, if you ritual summon a Vendread ritual monster using monsters in your graveyard or deck or hand, treat it as though those monsters were on the field for the ritual summon. That would be really great. Maybe not deck, but definitely graveyard and hand. But yeah, it's not looking like it's going to happen, which really sucks. So, what do you guys think of Vendreads? Do you like the archetype? Do you hate what Konami did to them? Just like really being lackluster with the like promising concept and then just screwing it over? Do you think that Konami did well with it? Which I don't think many people do think that. But what do you guys think? thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry this went on so long. I was not expecting this archetype analysis to go on so long. That's what this new format does, though. It took me about an hour to make the slideshow and an hour to record. So, by the way, quick little update. Sorry about the lack of uploads. Freaking finals is killing me, but however, next week is my last week of actual class, and the week after that is my last week, is finals week. So once that is over, and I'm taking mostly online classes, I'm going to be a lot more free, and I'm going to try and get back on to recording and getting a lot more recordings out. Now then, also, I know I said I wanted to try and do live streams on Mondays, but I got a new job recently, and they have me working all day every Monday, so I got to try and find a new time for that. I'm thinking Wednesday evenings. I'm not sure. I wanted to do it last night and get it started, but I had a lot of stuff going on Wednesday, so hopefully next Wednesday I'll be able to, so we'll see. Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. See you all later, and peace out.